Studios in Harare, Zimbabwe. Welcome to the Leadership Talk Show. This broadcast is brought to you by Zim Paper's TV network ZTN in partnership with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe, ICAZ, and Tel1. Now, leadership is both a research area and a practical skill, encompassing the ability of an individual, group, or organization to lead, influence, or guide other individuals, teams, or entire organizations. Zimbabwe is full of such leaders, yet one area of concern is that they may not pass on their leadership skills to future generations. Our guests will share their leadership stories so as to inspire the next generation of leaders. This is exactly what the Leadership Talk Show is all about. Now, our guest today on the Leadership Talk Show is a renowned business leader. She is a chartered accountant by profession and holds an honors degree in accounting from the University of Zimbabwe. She also holds an executive management development certificate with Wharton Business School in the United States of America. She further, on top of that, holds an honorary doctorate of philosophy degree in business management from the Women's University in Africa. She sits on several commercial and social welfare boards. We welcome to the Leadership Talk Show the Managing Director of Tel1 Private Limited, Chipo Mtasa. Chipo, welcome to the Leadership Talk Show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to you. I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Now, Chipo, let me start with a, I suppose, a basic question. What, in your opinion, is leadership?
Leadership is ability to influence and change events or circumstances for the better and achieve results. And its ability to convince people to move in a certain direction and have goals and aspirations that will generate positive results for any organization.
Okay, thank you for that. Now, let's look at your own career. Where did your leadership journey begin? And can you point out any highlights or milestones that you achieved in your leadership journey?
Well, my leadership journey probably began after I qualified as a chartered accountant, and I went into industry and commerce, where I spent a bit of time in the pharmaceutical industry with CAPS Holdings. Then I moved on to motor dealership. I was a financial controller for the Amtech Group, which is part of the Motec group of companies. And then I then moved into the hospitality industry as financial director for the Harare Sheraton Hotel, which then was a member of the Starwood Hotels and Resorts at that stage. Then from Sheraton, I then moved into Rainbow Tourism Group as finance director, after which I was then promoted to CEO in 2005. And I suppose when I then was appointed CEO, that was the real test of leadership then. And then after about 6 years with RTG, I moved. I'm now here for the past 8 years with Tel1 as managing director.
It seems in your journey, every time you moved, you got promoted. But in your opinion, was your journey an easy or a difficult one?
It was both, especially during the financial times when I was moving from one financial position to the other. I think it was fairly easy in the sense that having trained as a CA, that's an area of strength that I already had, and it's easy to, within the area of competence, to rise up within the ranks. But when I then got into general management, it became a whole different ball game. And yeah, you really get a lot of tests there.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. Chipo, I want to talk about a topical subject, which is education and the question of education, because obviously some thoughts now that new learners need to go to university or schools to really learn more skills, business skills, rather than set courses like being a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant. But I mean, you hold honors degree in accounting from the University of Zimbabwe, an executive management development certificate with Wharton Business School in the United States of America, and of course an honorary doctorate of philosophy degree in business management from the Women's University in Africa. But what are your thoughts on education, and what advice would you give to our future leaders concerning education and its importance or not in their path?
Well, the basics should always be done. Things like just getting the basic degree. And I don't consider myself to be very educated, by the way. I should have even done better. But now in my field, I'm like, I want to go into farming anyway. So what's the heck? But definitely at a certain level, you actually need to get educated. You actually need to get the grades and to aspire to do much more the business courses which are formal, whether it's MBA, leadership courses. I think those are really critical for somebody to then just have a launch pad for which a career in leadership can be pursued. So the basic education is important, the formalized education, but also there's also the other aspect of really going in to get informal aspects of education. This is really like to extend your sphere of influence, your sphere of the people that you connect with. That is also very important.
I mean,
so you don't just say that it's all about education. Yes, education is the first step, but from education, then you really need to extend in terms of who you connect with, who you talk to, who you are really making an effort to learn from. Whether they are mentors or others, you really need to make that effort.
And what's interesting, I found, is that most big companies or most major organizations are run by chartered accountants. So it appears that that chartered accountant skill, or having a background in education in chartered accountancy, does play a big role in terms of achieving sometimes major successes of leadership. That seems to be the way it is today.
Yes. I don't think it's surprising at all because of the nature of training for chartered accountants. First and foremost, you get exposed to all sorts of industries as you get to audit all sorts of organizations, from public to private, from industry to commerce, right across sectors. So one gets a feel of what is happening in different organizations. So just by the mere training for CA, the exposure, I think that really is an advantage in terms of really getting knowledge and what one needs to do and achieve in different organizations. Then the other thing about CAs as well is that we also do a lot of evaluations, performance assessments during the course of training. So that's a very critical aspect in leadership, where even myself up to now, I struggle with some of the colleagues that I work with to say, really, you actually need to tell people bad news about performance. When somebody is not performing, they are not performing. And if they are performing, then well and good. So I think the CA exposure in terms of the training, in terms of what you get exposed to in the organizations, is a very good advantage over some trainings elsewhere. I'm not saying it's the only, but it's certainly one that really appeals a lot.
And it's important.
In leadership.
Yeah. Now, I asked you earlier what you thought leadership was, and I want to tie this into the aspect of education as well, because obviously education or being at a university or being in that kind of environment, and as you said, training to be a chartered accountant, you have to, as a leader, also have specific, let's call them soft skills, because you can be there to motivate, you're there to listen. How important are having these soft skills, things that they can't really teach you in a classroom, to being a leader?
They are critical. I'm sure that that's something then you acquire also over time, and that's something that you then become intentional to get training over emotional intelligence, other issues pertaining to soft leadership skills that you can acquire as you get into the upper echelons of leadership or whatever phase you become. So I think it's good to get technical skills first, and then you develop those soft skills as you go on. And those are critical to get you to the next level. Without soft skills, I'm sure it will be very difficult to be an effective leader, because leadership is about influence. It's about motivation. It's about inspiring others to do better, to achieve, because it won't be you who will be doing all the hard work, but it's the people. It's you have to have people and systems that work so that you can achieve. So soft skills are going to be critical.
Chipo, I must say honestly, you are probably one of the top women leaders in Zimbabwe, and honestly, there are few and far between. Unfortunately, I'll give you some statistics later. But did you find any major challenges in your ride to leadership, particularly as a woman? And if so, how did you manage to overcome them? What would you say to women future leaders about issues such as that, these challenges that may be faced in their rise?
First and foremost, I don't think myself as a woman in the first place in terms of leadership. I just think myself as a Chipo, an individual who is there, who should be given equal opportunity just like anyone else. I think it begins with our attitude as women. If you think you can make it, then you go out and look at what it is that you need to make it. But yes, I must admit that it's not easy. And what I tend to think is that as women, we seem to be tested all over again. You know, every time you have to prove yourself all over more than my male counterparts.
You have to work harder, you think, than male counterparts.
Yeah, men to understand themselves much better than accepting another woman into the game. But yeah, it can happen, but with a lot of hard work, with a lot of objectivity, one needs to just go on and move in. For me, I was also fortunate, and I think that will happen to a lot of women, that I worked with men who were also very progressive in their thinking. They felt that with my capabilities, I could do much more than what I was currently doing. And so they had the trust in me to promote me to the bigger leadership positions. And I hope I didn't disappoint them. There will always be people in our work who will always pull us up to the next level. And I think this is a very critical area for women to look for. You look for others who can pull you up. You can look for those that have worked before you, talk to them. How do they do it? What is it that you need to do? I did that a lot, even in my early stages of leadership, to listen to others, not just men, for example, to also look out for other women. I had other women who really were encouraging me during my early days. And even now, you have lots of women who cheer you on. And that's very important. And also, I think the family circle is also a very critical one.
Yeah. You know, Chipo, one thing, we did some research and we found that, you know, particularly in Zimbabwe today, it appears that families would rather send their boy child to school and educate them, leaving the girl child to stay at home and look after the parents or look after the house and so forth, which is obviously stunting the girl child's growth. But obviously, the women obviously are equally able to be good leaders as anyone else. So they need to be able to have the determination to break out of that and be committed and have a vision to go to university and really have ambition. I mean, what would you say to, you know, it's a tough question, I suppose, in a way, because it's a bit cultural, but what would you say to girls like that?
Well, at the moment, our government, for example, in our constitution, is talking about women being a 50-50 representation at all levels, whether it's leadership and any other level. So we have the laws of the country that are really supporting us as women. I'm beginning to see, because I work in a state-owned entity, I'm beginning to see what government is already starting to do. Even when they are appointing boards, they are very intentional about appointing women. My own board here at Tel 1, we actually have the majority as women.
All right.
So there's a lot of promotion of women in leadership right now. You talk of people going into achieving sustainability development goals. Gender equity is one of those that is a key goal and target. So there is a lot going on for the girl child, and we need to seize that. And I think maybe it's another area that we need to seize the opportunity as women leaders to speak more and more to the rising upcoming girls and talk to them, encourage them, assert them, affirm them. I think that will happen. And also maybe also to talk to the educators. We need to play a prominent role with the Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education Education, Ministry of Higher and Tertiary Education, and say, hey, how can we promote the women empowerment even much more? I think there are a lot of avenues that we can do. And once we also see women coming up, I think it's our role as other women leaders to cheer on, to support, to give a helping hand. If one of our own is having problems, it's not for us to say, we always knew she will not make it, but to say, wow, what can we do to help her so that she can get out of her issues and we can achieve much better. So I think it's a whole lot of issues, but it can happen. I think there's a lot that can happen, and even now that it's an information age where the whole world, even Zimbabwe, is becoming much more digital. It's now the internet age. So there's a lot that is also happening in terms of the information that is coming across, and we should encourage girls to look for role models, look up for case studies that have been successful. We have women, for example, who have actually built schools, for example. That is actually very important.
It is. Chipo, moving on from that, you sit on several commercial and social welfare boards, quite diverse, in fact. How do you think your leadership skills allows you to navigate and contribute on so many diverse and different platforms and different entities who are dealing with different issues?
I am very privileged that I've been exposed to so many of these organizations. And in fact, sitting on these boards, having this exposure actually strengthens my capacity to deliver in my current executive role that I have here, because I get the exposure. I also get the best practice in certain areas of doing things. I also feel that in terms of what I have, in terms of the experience, I'm also able to impart the values, a bit of just the stability that is required in any organization. So yes, it's a give and take, and it's a win-win throughout.
In fact, you raised something there which I hadn't thought about, but it's very important, and it's about the values of a leader. I mean, here I'm talking about issues such as ethics, integrity, honesty. I mean, these are important to build the trust that you're a leader and people can actually trust you and they respect you. What would your comment to that be?
Yes, as a leader, I don't think you should ever compromise on your value system. And that's the thing that should always stand out in a leader. And probably that's one thing that I've always valued myself as I went up the corporate ladder. Yes, I need the money, and I've always also wanted to get a top dollar, but not necessarily happening in some of the instances. But wherever I am associated with, I would like to be known for being a leader who brought in a good value system, who brought in the necessary ethics that are required to get the organization to the next level. And I hope I'm doing that.
You're watching the Leadership Talk Show. This broadcast is brought to you by Zim Papers TV network ZTN in partnership with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe, ICAZ, and Tel One. And of course, my guest today is Chipo Mtasa, the boss at Tel One. Chipo, as a leader, it's an interesting question, this, because as a leader, what were your key success factors? Do you think that future leaders should have a career plan or even set goals that they want to achieve? Does that help them in their journey?
Definitely. Goal setting is critical. You need to visualize yourself. Where do you want, what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve in your life? Goals for the current year, for the next 2 years, for 5 years, and even 10, 20 years from now. Where do you want to be? How do you want to be positioned? How do you want to be known? What do you want to have achieved? You can also look at all areas of your life. I'm fortunate that I'm doing SMI, Success Motivation International module right now, where they talk about the wheel of life, where you really need to have goals around all the areas of your life: finance, career-wise, family-wise, socially, spiritually, and you then just have a balance in all the areas of your life. So I think goal setting is a very critical aspect of leadership. But other than goal setting, to have a proper action plan to say, how are you going to achieve your goals? Because some of the goals, they can be mere dreams, but you need to then say, how are you going to achieve? And then you take the necessary action steps to achieve those goals.
Right.
So that's a very big one for me. And then I think also, as you achieve your goals, you need to then also be mindful of what your value system is. What are your values? What is it that you not compromise? What is it that you are going to be known for as you are going to be achieving your set goals and targets? And then, of course, really, I know very few people who achieve anything without really working hard. One has to know that these things are not working hard.
Working hard is inevitable, it's true.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of commitment on your part, and a lot of, planning around your time, because sometimes something might even be compromised. I will tell you, even in my earlier days, when I had a young family, I would have to sit down my children and tell them that, it's not every day that I'll come to your soccer match. Because you know how it is with schools where every mother is attending soccer, cricket, rugby, because they have the time and they can be able to do that. In the meantime, maybe the day of the soccer match, you are being called for a board meeting.
That takes me to my next.
Then you have to
it takes me to my next question, because you did mention this earlier, and it's about the support of your family and how important that is to a leader's journey, and even in your journey in particular, and also how you balance that work-life dynamics. I mean, as a woman as well, who has to finish working very hard, and possibly have to go home and look after a young family. You said maybe cook, I don't know. There is those dynamics that you have to navigate if you still want to achieve your success factors.
Yes, I think as women, you need to be very clear about that. You need a very strong support system as you walk through your career. A strong support system, in the sense that at home you need a strong support system. Around your children, you need to have a strong support system. Obviously, you can't really say for your husband you need a strong support system. You need also to be very intentional how you then allocate your time and balance amongst those things. But it's possible. We are fortunate, especially for those that a local in the country, it is very possible. I mean, we have parents, we have sisters, brothers, who can also be a very counted on to be very strong support. So that can be possible. And also you can be intentional on some of the issues. I was just talking about the soccer matches for my children. I would really be intentional that if it's a weekend, I'll also be seen. But also even during the week, once in a while during the school term, I'm seen here and there, and surprise them, and they will be shocked to say, nice. Wow, Mom, how did you make it? And I'll tell them that yes, it's not always possible, but I really have to make an effort. So yeah, those are things that can happen.
I mean, the family is so critical, as you said, but I think just briefly, this issue you spoke about earlier about building networks or having a mentor. I mean, do you think it's important for future leaders to at least have that networking, that mentorship as well, so that they can be guided down a path or be given good advice?
That is crucial, definitely. I'm a product of mentors. I'm a product of a good network, I think. And then one just needs to learn from other people. You cannot just learn from the books or the lecturer or whatever, but learn from other experiences. And to me, I used to, especially when I was at RTG, it was listed on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, I used to follow the counters that were doing well and say, what is it that they are doing that I'm not doing? What is it that I can learn? And even with my team, let's study this, and even look for one-for-one mentorship opportunities. I must say that I'm grateful to the former CEO at RTG, Herbert Nkala. He was a excellent mentor for me. I'm grateful to the board members that I had at RTG. If I mention some, there was Grace Muradzikwa, for example, great mentor of mine. Kenan Dube, a great mentor of mine. So, I always reached out and tried to learn as much as possible also from my mentors, and they would really tell me as it is. I mean, mentors, they don't just tell you the good, nice things, but sometimes they also tell you the bad stuff that one can do.
They do. Now, it is said that failure is inevitable. Every successful path comes naturally with failure. So your advice, how did or do you deal with failure, and what would you recommend to future leaders on how to deal with this critical issue?
I think failure is a source of strength. I've failed so many times, countless times, but what I've learned to do over time is to go through the experiences that I've gone through, the failures that have occurred, and say, what are the learning points? What is it that we can do to do things better next time? So yes, failure is a way of life, but it's a source of strength because one has to learn from those failures. And also failures, they make us humble. Sometimes as leaders, we become so big-headed and so invincible that we don't think that the world has got issues. Right. So it's good to fail because it reminds us that we actually live in a world with so many dynamics.
Right. Chipo, what advice would you give to future leaders? What should they be doing now in order to become a future leader?
I would say that be clear and focused on your goals and know what it takes for you to get there and work towards it. Whatever you can imagine and you can desire, you really need now to work towards it. And also extend your sphere of influence. Things will not just happen when you are seated by yourself, but they will happen as you talk to other people, as you extend yourself to reach out to know what is happening around you. So be of influence, be intentional with what you do, and have stakeholders around you that you can engage and talk to, and investigate avenues of how you can get to where you want to get. It's not an impossible journey. And I'm hoping that more and more women can get into leadership. And I'm so excited that even this year, over the past 12 months or so, we've seen quite a number of women who are rising up as female leaders, and they're doing so many great things. So I'm sure by the time we get to 2022, we will have much more women. The Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, I'm hoping that we'll have much more women than just the one woman who is there. The Bankers Association, I'm hoping we'll get another few women other than the one woman who is there in the Bankers Association. Certainly in the state enterprises sector, I'm hoping that we will also have much more women coming up as leaders. Now, it will be exciting.
Yeah, Chipo, people say that being a leader in Zimbabwe today is, to put it mildly, challenging. And obviously there's lots of hurdles and challenges that have to be faced by leaders. In your opinion, what would you say to budding leaders, future leaders, people who are starting their journey on how they can overcome some of these or navigate some of these challenges in today's Zimbabwe?
Well, certainly it's no walk in the park, because the host of unknowns is just so incredible. Even in terms of, what we've gone through in terms of policies that have been changing as the economy tries to achieve some measure of stability. So it's not a very easy issue. But for my advice is that build a strong team. For myself, I think I've always valued that. I'm privileged to have a very strong team around me of men and women who are capable and who are committed to the goals of the organization. So strong leadership I think one of the issues is identifying and building a strong team.
Right.
And then the other issue also is that be close to the action as much as possible. Talk to others within the industry. Talk to others outside of industry. Know what is happening at any point in time, and continue to adapt to the circumstances of the day. It's not easy, but it can happen.
Right.
So that's what I can say for me, and also remain focused on your targets.
Chipo, my final question, and just a very brief answer if you can. What would you like to be remembered for? What would, if you look back on your life and your leadership journey, what would you say, that's my legacy?
Well, my legacy, I think what I want to say is that I've got a legacy of doing things right, of standing up for the right things, for being principled as a leader, and for changing things for the better in any organization that I lead. And that's what I want to be known for.
Thank you. I think on that note, we have come to the end of our program this afternoon. You've been watching the Leadership Talk Show. This broadcast is brought to you by Zim Papers TV Network ZTN in partnership with the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe, ICAZ, and Tel1. I would like to thank our guest today, Chipo Mtasa. Thank you very much, Chipo, for appearing on the show this afternoon.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving us your time. A final comment. Do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. That's Ralph Waldo Emerson. Join us every week for the Leadership Talk Show. That's every Tuesday at 2 p.m. live on Zim Papers TV Network ZTN. I'm Andy Hodges. Goodbye, and please, you all be safe.